Welcome back to Laughing in the Dark, the podcast where I hang out in haunted places with comedians. I'm your host, Sarah Jones. For this episode, I got to work with the very talented Jesse Gavin. Jesse Gavin is an actor and comedian originally from upstate New York and currently based in Los Angeles. His recent television credits include Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and The Conners. He studied at William Esper Studio in New York and the Upright Citizens Brigade in Los Angeles. He writes and performs comedic songs and can be found online with the handle at It's Jesse Gavin. If you want, check out our Instagram at Lit Dark Podcast for photos that go along with this episode. For now, relax and get ready to learn all about the hauntings of the Hinsdale house.
Hello.
Hi, is this Jesse?
This is Jesse indeed. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Doing well.
How's your lockdown going?
It's going pretty good. I've made use of the time to just kind of in my apartment for about 6 years, so I kind of organizing it, getting rid of stuff.
Yeah, that's
making
good.
Making it more livable. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing the same thing, the Marie Kondo style.
Exactly. It's a healthy thing to do. You hold it in your hand. If it doesn't spark joy,
Right.
gotta get rid of it.
Let it go. So, because we're not bound by places that I have to physically go to do these episodes, I've been doing episodes in people's home states. Do you know where Hinsdale, New York is?
I don't know it offhand. Real quick, Hinsdale, like Hins.
Yep, Hinsdale.
I last lived in upstate New York, I would say in 2003.
Okay.
So there's a lot of like little towns you hear your whole life growing up that I kind of forgot about.
Yeah, and it does. I think it is a small town, and it's one of those names that just I'm sure can get lost in the shuffle. Like, yeah, I've probably heard of Hinsdale. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So I just looked it up. Hinsdale is more towards where I went to college, which is kind of the western part of the state. So it's kind of like almost towards like the Pennsylvania border, which is a fun little area.
Okay. Yeah.
Near Chautauqua and Jamestown.
I've never been to New York. So I have a buddy who lives in New York City, and I was like, is Hinsdale upstate? And he was like, I don't know. So anyway.
Upstate is full of so many like little random towns with odd names.
Okay.
And pretty much to anyone that's in New York City, it's all the same place.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't actually. One of my articles finally said upstate New York, and I was like, "Oh, thank God," because I have no idea. But our story takes place deep in the forests of Hinsdale, New York, and there is a decrepit farmhouse, and it sits unassuming, tucked away into the trees. This dilapidated farmhouse is the site of one of the most notoriously violent hauntings in the country.
First off, I just want to say, tucked into the forest sounds like the perfect place for a haunting to happen.
It's
when you run out, you just run into the woods.
Exactly. Yeah, and we'll get into that. So this place is actually rivaled only in the horrors of the Amityville house. And it might be the most haunted building in the state of New York and even the country.
The most haunted building in the state of New York? Because Amity is in Long Island, right?
I have no idea, dude. Like,
all
my geography skills are not refined.
In that Amityville horror movie, I just remember there's a part where a kid like tumbles down the stairs, like just falls down the stairs violently.
Yeah.
And his dad walks over to him and just goes, "Yeah, you got to watch those stairs."
Yeah,
no, like, are you okay, or what just happened, or
was it
get you to the hospital?
But doesn't the dad get like possessed by the spirits? Yeah. So was he kind of already a part of it? At
that point, I think it was pretty early on. It was like one of the first like creepy things that happened. If I remember right, it was like 20 years ago I saw it. But it was a joke of ours. I watched it with my college buddies, and it's just like, yeah, I gotta watch those stairs. Something like very just like absent father kind of a thing that's just like, oh, I got stuff out there. Or it's like, no, it's your dad, you know?
He's like, watch out, idiot. But yeah, so That story, everyone knows that story, and it's a true story of a haunting in a house. But no one really, I've never heard of the Hinsdale house, and it sounds like you've never heard of it, and you lived close by. So that's
Yeah.
interesting to me. I was waiting for you to be like, oh, I knew you were going to do the Hinsdale house. So here's the story. In the summer of 1974, the Dandy family moved into this then century-old farmhouse. So it's already this old farmhouse. And of course, like the start of every good horror movie, they're dreaming of their happy home in the country.
Oh, yeah.
So it feels like my imagination is just the visuals of, you know, a beautiful, in the middle of the woods farmhouse, like idyllic scenery.
And did you say 74?
Yeah, 1974, the summer.
74, yeah. That's also just like the visuals on that of like the 1974 car pulling up,
Right.
the hairstyles.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Like, what's the like wood paneled?
Yeah, oh, the station wagons with the wood panels on the side. Yeah,
that's totally what I'm picturing.
The kids are in the back looking out, like in the rear window.
They're like, we're finally doing it. This is our new life. It's a new start. So within days, the family starts to experience paranormal activity in the home. A variety of peculiar poltergeist activity starts cropping up. And poltergeist activity is usually just kind of subtle, but just eerie enough to give you pause and kind of run a chill through your spine. Things like an unexplainable coldness to the room that's so cold you can see your own breath. This is what they actually experience. This isn't just an example of, general.
And you said poltergeist experiences are things that are like just enough to kind of like freak you out. Is that, I've never heard that term before. Is that the name of the movie?
Well, the movie Poltergeist is its own kind of thing. There's like, okay, I haven't seen Poltergeist since I was like a kid, but remember there were like the skeletons in the backyard and there's like, this curse on the land and stuff. The spirits coming out of the TV. That's not what I'm referring to. I think, so since I've started this show, I've done this for like 3 years, and I have learned so much about different kinds of hauntings that people experience. And my impression when people mention like poltergeist activity, I think of it as like kind of more almost like playful, like just subtle things. Like when you walk into a kitchen and all the cabinet doors are open, things like that.
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck? But it's not so much that it's like threatening, but it's enough to be like, this is weird. And then you kind of just go on living your life,
It's almost like in the scary movie, it's like the 20 minutes in kind of things that happen.
Yeah, when things just kind of start to go awry. You're like, something here is not adding up. So they kind of have this unsettling feeling like someone else is in the room when they walk into a certain room. Just things that are odd enough to give you pause, but minor enough to just move past them and kind of brush them away. Then they started to receive mysterious and creepy phone calls from unknown callers. So this, I like extra dug into it because I wanted to know what about the calls made them stand out as like an example of the hauntings, you know what I mean? But I wasn't able to find those details.
And this is also going back to the 1974 context. This is like there's a certain flavor to like a rotary dial phone with like the cord that you pick up and having like spooky calls come through that.
That's a good point. Yeah, there's definitely that element to it that you're just like, this is weird. It actually reminds me, when you just said that, it reminds me of what's that? Are you like a horror movie fan?
I wouldn't say I'm like super into the genre, but I guess I enjoy when I see them.
There's a movie that came out around this time, I think, and I think it's called Dark Christmas, and it's like, I think it's like one of the first slasher films, but it's like the sorority house, and they would get calls from the killer, like prank phone calls from the killer. But do you know what I'm talking about?
No. I'm just so like at the same time as this real life event happened, there was a movie where
Yes.
the killer would call them, like kind of prank call the sorority.
Yeah, but it seems like what they're alluding to in these calls, and one of the people who lived in this house actually wrote a book, so I'm sure she goes into what the calls were like. But it seems like they're alluding that it's more of a paranormal, supernatural type entity that's calling them, or entities.
Gotcha.
Then they started to begin to hear chanting emanating from the dark and ominous woods that surrounded them. So now it kind of starts ramping up.
Oh, chanting.
Chanting.
I feel like chanting is going to be creepy if it's not a supernatural force.
Either, yeah,
just
absolutely.
Chanting
Just a
on
cult.
its own is just like, yeah.
Don't worry, they're just a
we
cult.
thought it was a nice cult, but it turns out it was.
They're all alive. It's not paranormal or anything. They're just nuts. And it's the 70s when like cults are a big thing.
Yeah.
So this activity only continues to get worse and more intense as time passed. The family then started to see full-bodied apparitions. So this is a very common type of haunting, so common that it's almost become trite when it comes to ghost stories. I'm referring, of course, to the often described apparition of a woman in white. You hear it constantly. It's like in every ghost story. But of course, the Dandy family did see this classic haunting of a woman in white walking through the halls, but they also saw demonic non-human entities and bizarre animal-human hybrids.
Wait, say that one more time.
All right, so you're picturing this activity kind of starts adding up, and they're like, okay, this place is fucking haunted for sure. Then they finally see the classic woman in white. They're definitely starting to see ghosts. And not only that, they started to see basically ghosts, like figures of non-human entities, like demons.
Okay.
And animal-human hybrids. So now it's just getting wild.
Yeah.
I wanted more details on like which animal-human hybrids they were seeing, but again, that's probably in her book that I haven't read yet. I probably plan to. So one night, this family, okay, this is my favorite story that I read about it. The family finally at one point in the living room at night saw a group of strange faces all peering into their windows. Yeah, not fun. So dutifully, Mr. Dandy decides to walk outside and scare them off. But when he walked outside, something peculiar happened. As he walked to where the figures should have been standing, he looked back into the windows, and there he saw those same strange faces peering back out at him, but this time from inside the house.
Okay.
Horrifying.
Yeah.
So these hauntings started coming to a new extreme when things turned physical. Objects could be seen levitating throughout the house, and once a lamp from the living room was thrust violently by an invisible force at one of the Dandy daughters. So this is very...
Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah, it's very Amityville. Like, you're talking about this kid being, like, pushed down the stairs. Some ghost is, like, throwing lamps at the kids.
Yeah.
For reasons unknown to the family, Mr. Dandy started to experience bouts of amnesia where he became unable to remember some of the most terrifying experience that they had encountered in the house.
So wait, you were talking about like recent events. They were like, when that happened, or when the lady in the white dress showed up, and you would forget the things that they had all kind of like witnessed together and talked about.
Exactly, which to me is kind of the scariest part because this is the protector of the house. He's Mr. Dandy. Like, he's out there trying to make everything okay. He's like chasing off these cult members looking in his windows that turn out to be poltergeists or whatever they are. So he just kind of just starts forgetting them. And I imagine if I was in that family, I would think he was full of shit. Like, I would think he was just in denial, Yeah. So eventually this all becomes too much to bear. The family finally decided it was time to enlist the help of an exorcist.
That's just the phrase alone too is also like, how do you go about doing it? Do you look at it as a phone book sort of an activity?
They're gonna wait. What? What'd you say? Sorry.
Is it a phone book activity? Do you like look up Exorcist in the yellow pages?
Yeah, I
Is
have
it?
no idea. I think you have to just talk to people in the town and are like, "Do you guys know an exorcist?" Or what would you do?
I like when you talk to people in the town. They're like, "You must be the people that moved into the farmhouse."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're probably
They knew you were coming to ask.
So Father Alphonsus is brought in. He's a priest from the nearby Saint Bonaventure University. Does that still exist? Does that ring any bells?
Yeah, St. Bonaventure.
Yeah.
I
So
believe so.
anyway,
Yeah.
so Father Alphonsus, he's a priest from there. They bring him in. He's brought in to perform the exorcism. Both the family and a team of paranormal investigators were present for the ritual. Because of this, we have several eyewitness accounts of everything that occurred during the exorcism. So the lights are turning on and off. There's unexplainable banging on the walls, a general terrible sense of foreboding and evil, of course. Then the house started to shake violently, and sounds emanated from the windows that were described as a mixture of screaming and crying. I mean, it's a horror movie. But it's real. This is something that people have experienced, and multiple people have talked about it and been like, yeah, it was fucked up.
Yeah.
After the exorcism, a few days of calm settled over the house, but they would soon be interrupted. The exorcism didn't work. The spirits seemed to be angry that the family had tried to drive the evil spirits out, and the paranormal activity ramps up again to a full crescendo, ultimately forcing the family to leave the home. All said they had lived there a little over a year, from July 1973 to October 1974. Clara Miller Dandy, I think she was the wife of Mr. Dandy when they moved in. She wrote Echoes of a Haunting in 2000, and it details her family's terrifying experiences in the home. I want to read it because I like hearing people's firsthand accounts of things that happened more than even watching a movie, because it's real. It's fascinating. In 2015, a local paranormal investigator named Dan Clace purchased the home in order to preserve the haunted building for research. Clace is the co-founder of Greater WNY Paranormal Society. Clace actually believes the paranormal activity goes as far back as 1799, when an Indian massacre was said to have occurred on the land. That'll do it.
And when he said it goes back till 1799, like that's like the first recording of it, or does he think that's when it starts?
Yeah. So apparently there was an Indian massacre on this land, and he's suggesting that some of the hauntings are from those Native Americans that were killed there.
Oh, I'm sorry. So the paranormal activity of this specific house, then?
Of the land that the house
of
is
the
on.
land. Okay.
So one of the tour guides says that her son was staring out the window from inside the house and asked, "Who's the angry Indian staring at Daddy?" when nobody was there.
Okay, yeah.
Also, to add to it, during the early 1800s, it's believed that a pair of brothers lived in this house. So I guess the house had been built on the land, or maybe it was already there. Lived in the house and made a habit of raiding passing stagecoaches, killing and robbing the occupants, then burying their corpses either in the cellar or in the hills behind the house.
Whoa, okay, so this is another element of the hunt.
Yeah, it's basically, it's almost like you would imagine the land itself is cursed because so many horrible things happened here.
Yeah.
And the house still stands. So this house has been featured on several paranormal programs, including Destination America's Paranormal Lockdown, which is fitting for us now, in April 2016. This aired on TLC for a Halloween special. In the episode, 2 paranormal investigators spent 72 hours living in and investigating the home. They actually experienced the chanting, banging on the walls, and also claimed to experience a sense of confusion. It has also been featured on an episode of A Haunting on Discovery Channel. Its level of extreme evil hauntings have only been rivaled by the notorious Amityville home, and it continues to draw attention from ghost enthusiasts. So, I'm going to go into some more of the like recent hauntings that are experienced in this house. But before I do, I'm kind of curious to know, how do you feel about hauntings in general? Like, do you believe in ghosts or the paranormal?
I do. I feel like I have a weird relationship with it in the sense that I believe it, but I've kind of opted to try to ignore it as much as possible.
Okay.
And this kind of, I guess, this sort of like philosophy of mine. I don't know if I had it before, but I lived in a building in Los Feliz or Los Feliz. That was I wasn't aware of it at the time, but it was known for being haunted. Like people that have lived there said they saw ghosts and stuff. And I before I found out all that, I was living in a studio and I had like a room divider, an IKEA style room divider, where it was like not bookshelves but shelves that you could see through. Okay. So that would sort of divide where the bed was and where like the living room was. So my studio had like two rooms. And so I remember sleeping. I saw you mentioned the woman in the flowy dress. I saw a woman in a white dress.
Holy
walk.
Shit.
There's several times where I like woke up and I could like sense something. But I remember after that happened, it was like a couple months of it. And, I like saw the woman in the white dress and, was freaked out.
You said this was a couple months ago?
No, I'm sorry. This was like 2011, maybe 2012.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But this is a couple months of being in the apartment and feeling things, having poltergeist moments. Is that what it's called?
Right.
Where it's just like creepy and like something falling in the kitchen. And I'm not really like it's something that I kind of actively ignore, almost in the sense of like I fear that I might go a bit get too into it if I were to. But this is the first time where I was like confronted with something where it was like, I actually like saw someone. So the next time it happened, I remember I got up, and this is like really dumb, but I had to be like up early in the morning. I had something important, and I was just like not in a good mood.
Yeah.
And my solution was I got up and I just shouted to the apartment to whoever was in it. I was just like, I've had enough of this. This ends now. I'm sick of it. I just laid down the law as if it was like the next door neighbors of like college kids that were playing music loud. And I was just like, no more music past midnight.
Right.
And it stopped. I was there for like another year and a half, and it never happened again.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was like my one experience with that. And it was one of the things where I didn't get into it. It's almost like I would rather try to ignore it so it doesn't enter my realm. Is my approach to this.
Okay, well, it was brave of you to participate in the show, so thank you for maybe potentially going out of your comfort zone a little bit with that. I feel bad now that I was like, oh yeah, the woman in white, everyone says it. You're like, oh.
It was so funny because I was just like, when it happened, you're just like, come on. I have a buddy. Do you know Dennis Hempel, comedian?
I don't.
He has this bit that I absolutely love where he talks about like the woman in the white dress. And he said that he has a hard time believing in ghosts because people always see a woman in like a Victorian era white dress. And he goes, if there was really ghosts, we would at least have a couple people say that they've seen ghosts that were dressed in 80s clothing.
Right.
He's like, because if you do the math, there's people that have died in the 80s and were dressed in like, described like neon clothing and whatnot.
Right.
And he's like, I just want to hear it. And then he does like an act out of an 80s ghost haunting you, which is hilarious. But yeah, it was really weird that the white dress lady was what I saw. It's like it was almost like made me mad.
You're like, this is hack. Come on.
Yeah, it was like hack haunting. Thumbs down.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's wild. That's awesome. But actually, I hear that argument constantly about no one ever sees a present day ghost. Like, I just want to see a teenage ghost not paying attention, texting in the road or like some shit. Exactly. But the way I think about it is like, well, how many times have you walked around, just gone outside and done, lived your life normally and you saw people, but they weren't really there? Like, what if there are people in crowds that are ghosts? We don't know.
But if you saw, if I think in any context, if I saw a lady walking with a big flowy white dress that was a real person, I would probably notice that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you probably would. But I mean, but if you're like in Hollywood or something, you're not gonna think anything of it. You'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
whatever. Like, so
Hollywood.
you know, Hollywood, I'm sure, is full of hauntings every day.
Yeah, there's nothing that catches your eye in Hollywood.
But it's like those are the things that stand out to you. So that's when you notice them. I wonder how often there
Yeah.
are things that are not really standing out that we're just like, well, whatever. But I had a similar experience. I saw a woman standing on the end of my bed at one time. And yeah, when you're trying to sleep, it's the craziest thing. But what's funny is it doesn't seem like you were, like people talk about what they imagine it would be like to encounter a ghost. And they say, like, oh, it'd be so scary. Like, I wouldn't know what to do. But really, you almost treat it like it's another person in that moment. Like, you were just like, hey, just fuck off. Like, I have to wake up early, like, enough.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting. How was it after that? Like, was it hard to go to sleep the following night? Or, I mean, were you just like, what happened?
I think it happened. I went back to sleep. In general, I'm like a deep sleeper. I fall asleep right away, and
Lucky
nothing wakes me
you.
up,
Good for
which is
you.
great. Yeah, yeah. It's I'm very I feel very fortunate that I have it. So that's why I thought it was especially weird that I kept waking up in the middle of the night and like sensing things. Like it's very
Right.
out of character. Like there could be a person like pushing my shoulder, and I probably wouldn't wake up. So
Yeah.
the fact that I was waking up on its own was kind of weird.
Okay.
I think it happened, and I just like it. Well, like you said, it was like I didn't feel like it was this huge thing. Like I was talking to the spirit world or whatever. It was like simply like I needed to get up the next day early. I had something important, and I was just annoyed.
Yeah.
So I just kind of reacted in the moment, in a real way to what I thought was something that could hear me and understand, and then. That happened, and then I think even when it was happening, there's a part of me that was just like willfully ignorant. Like I almost don't want to honor the fact that this is happening
Right.
because I
Yeah.
just don't want to deal like I don't want to deal with haunting. Just seems
Yeah.
like a I don't know. I just want to live my life.
Seems like a real
Um,
project. Yeah.
yeah. So when that happened, and even when like the white dress thing happened, because I started to walk through that little IKEA room divider.
Into your
Um,
room or out of your room?
like she was in my room, and she was like, if I was on the bed side of the divider, she was on the other side, and it was one of those things where I just saw like heat, and because the divider itself is not a thing that you like see clearly through,
Mm-hmm.
because you put things in the divider, basically like shelves that are you can see through.
Yeah.
I wish I knew the name of the actual furniture piece. Um, so like I didn't see all of it, but I saw enough of it that that's what I made it out to be.
Yeah.
So then the next time when it happened, and I was just mad, it happened, and I think was just like, I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah. It's
And
funny because
then,
you're not like, is somebody there? You're just like, I know you're there. It's fine, but you need to leave me alone. Like, I have
yeah,
stuff to do.
exactly. So, yeah, because I've never been like active. I think some people are actively like, I don't believe in ghosts. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Or they're like, I do. I think I'm kind of like, I don't know, probably. Like, I don't
Indifferent.
see any reason why not. Like, it's a lot of stuff that you hear where you're just like, there's something to it. There's something going on.
Yeah.
But it was almost like I felt like, yeah, yeah, like I should just not go down that road. So yeah,
Yeah.
after the time where I yelled, I would say I continued to do what I did every night, was just go to sleep and pretend it wasn't there, and it just didn't happen anymore.
Yeah, I guess I should knock on wood, but people always tell me they're like, you got to be careful. Like you're messing with that spiritual
Yeah,
world. Like you got to be careful out there. And I've gone to a lot of haunted places. This is my third season of doing this. I'm A-okay, man.
yeah.
But I guess there's always time. So the
The question is
hauntings.
if the
Oh,
haunting people have like some sort of social media network and they're communicating with each other.
yeah, I always have people. Although, so I used to work at Kaiser Permanente. I was a phlebotomist, and there was one time I was drawing blood, and I had one other coworker with me. Our other coworker was on her break, so she's like on the other side of the room. And one of the thermoses that was in the processing area that probably had ice in it and like a sample of blood got knocked off the counter. Like nobody touched it. It was as if someone like brushed their hand and like thrust it across the floor. And we like all kind of looked at each other and then just, I don't know, like kept working because we had a patient in there and didn't want to make a deal out of it. And after the patient left, she was like, "What the fuck? Sarah, you bring ghosts with you. Like this is the shit you got to be careful about." And I'm like, oh. But
I like that she maybe had that thought like 5 seconds after it happened. Like it happened, and she's like, "What is that?" And then she was like, "Oh, it was something supernatural."
My coworker's been messing with the spiritual realm. Yeah. I knew this was going to happen.
She's like, "I'll put this on the back burner until I can have a second just with her to talk about it."
Well, that's like all, medical work too. Because like if something happens, you can't really make a big deal out of it in front of a patient. You have to wait till the patient's gone before you're like, that wasn't good.
Uh-oh. Yikes.
Whoops. She's like, if that sample is hemolyzed, I swear to God, you and your ghosts. But anyway, so this dandy farmhouse. The hauntings experienced here, still to this day, are almost too many to number. From ghostly manifestations, levitating objects, to the full-on exorcism that was done in this house. The house has really been through it all. They still have reports of shadow figures and full-body apparitions. So those are two different types of hauntings. Have you heard of the shadow figures?
It sounds familiar. I don't know if I would know the difference between that and
a full body.
Just like a full body image, yeah.
So the figure that you saw was a full body apparition. Some people, I've never seen a shadow figure, but some people claim to see, it's basically like, exactly what it sounds like. It's like a figure that's made out of shadows, and it'll walk around and they feel its presence and they see it, but it's just a shadowy, dark, like, entity. There's also still been reports of objects moving without anyone touching them, and EVPs have been caught within the house. So that's electronic voice phenomenon. So it's like if you take a recording in somewhere and you're just like, hello, and then you play it later and someone's like, hello.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, they catch that stuff in the house. I always really like to explore the comments of actual visitors to places like this to see what people claim to have experienced, because they allow you to do like tours through the house. In doing so, I have to mention that I found overwhelmingly positive reviews of this place and of the owner, Dan. So it seems like he's doing a really good job taking really good care of the place and of his guests. So it's a cool place to visit.
Dan is the guy that moved in 2015.
Yeah, the paranormal investigator who wants to preserve the haunting, which is kind of awesome. So here's from the comments that I read. There's a local guide named Patrick M., who described experiencing the taste of blood in his mouth, an unexplainable pressure on his back, and an oppressive feeling when he entered what was once Mary's bedroom. I think one of the daughters.
Yeah. The taste of blood thing freaks me out the most. Just because, how many times does that happen to you where you're just like, there's blood in my, it's like something happens with your tooth, or like that's a sensation that I've had before. I know exactly what it is, but
or
also
you, like, bit your
how
lip or
often.
Something.
Yeah. It doesn't happen to you that often.
Right. But I feel like when I picture it, I imagine it being the taste in his entire mouth. Because, when you like bite your lip, it's only in one part of your mouth. Ugh.
Yeah.
That would make me feel sick. One commenter named Savannah claims to have been spoken to by a ghost when she visited. She says it sounded like a groan and that a firm phantom grip grabbed her clothing. That's actually something I've experienced in a haunted place in Detroit, Michigan. I had like a hoodie tied around my waist, and a phantom like pulled it. And I actually stopped and like circled around myself just to see if like my hoodie got caught on something, and there was nothing there. So that's an interesting experience. Another local guide named William warns that the evil follows you. This is what you're freaked out about after visiting this place. But it doesn't sound like it's happened to you since your experience. Like it hasn't followed you since then, do you feel?
No, it definitely didn't follow me. I feel like it's the location itself. I will say that like when the subject comes up, even when you were kind of walking through the 1974 experience, I definitely did have the moment where I just sort of become like aware of the supernatural. I just like changed the
Yeah.
state of a bit. But I definitely haven't had other than that one time for those couple of months in that one place. I've never had an experience.
Well, yeah, if any topics make you uncomfortable, you can be like,
Yeah.
let's skip this. Like it's fine. My favorite review came from a local guide by the name of Ann W. She left a 3-star review that just reads, I don't know. So I felt like that was a helpful contribution. At least one movie has been inspired by the home. In December of 2019, Hinsdale House was released. According to IMDb, the film was described as Paranormal Activity meets Blair Witch Project, so it sounds pretty good. If you're interested, you can check out the home for yourself. Hinsdale House has a website which features a 24-hour live stream so that you can watch activities from the comfort of your own home. Check it out at hauntedhinsdalehouse.com. You can help to support and preserve the 200-year-old farmhouse by supporting their Patreon called the Hinsdale Driveway Project, or simply visit their website and click Become a Sponsor. You can also book a paranormal experience inside the Hinsdale house for yourself if you're brave enough. There have been overnight lockdown events in the house where you can engage in an overnight ghost hunt. And there are tons of events regularly happening at the house. You can take a look at their Facebook event page for details. I have to always throw something in there to be like, hey, you can actually check this out if you're in Hinsdale.
That overnight lockdown option is
Oh my
bonkers.
God. What if you went to the overnight lockdown and then this like statewide lockdown happened? I just
Shelter in
thought of
place.
that. You're like, oh fuck. There's just faces in the windows and you're afraid of coronavirus on the other side. So you're like, well, it's just
My question would be
now.
if any of the apparitions would have face masks on, cloth
Yeah,
covered.
well, you would hope so. Yeah, I don't know. I also thought about like I hear so many stories about haunted houses like that. I mean, this is a really extreme example, but I do a mini-sode series on this podcast where listeners call in and tell me their ghost stories. So I've had a couple stories that are like, yeah, I lived in this terrible haunted house and we moved out. We finally sold it. God help whoever's there now, but these are the things we experienced. And I'm just thinking, like, can you imagine if you were locked down in a haunted house like that? The spirits are like, we can't get them to leave. You're like,
that
the
is truly
government
wild
says
in the sense that
no.
anytime like you see a movie about a haunted house, like I think a big part of the story is like, when are they going to leave? When are they just going to pack up their car and go and be
Right,
like,
yeah.
we lost money on a house? So,
Yeah, fuck. I
but
guess
then
our
if the
safety's more
government was
important.
just like, hey, don't leave this house.
I
There's a
know.
pandemic.
That would be a really, really good plot to a movie to come out
Yeah.
of this experience. Now that I think about it, like
If you were like, because also, I mean, I feel like every country is different, but I feel like in China, I want to say, like when people get the coronavirus, or even are just like exposed to people that have gotten the coronavirus, like especially in Wuhan and whatnot, they were straight up doing quarantines that were like enforced. Like there's entire like apartment buildings where no one was allowed to leave.
yeah.
Like you just for like 28 days, no one got to leave the apartment building entirely. So we don't have that here, but like that definitely is a thing that exists in the world, which is they're like, hey, you just can't leave this house for
I
28
heard
days.
a story about a guy in Australia who got arrested. Like he was the first person to be arrested for not following the lockdown orders. I think it was something like he got in a fight with his wife or his girlfriend or something, and he like went to a hotel, and then he'd like go back and visit his family, and they were like, "Yeah, you can't be doing this," and they arrested him. I mean, it sucks, but
Like, what are you in here for?
plot to a movie. Like, what a horrifying. I mean, it starts to get really serious when obviously people that are dealing with like domestic violence and like other terrible things. But when it comes to like a horror movie, It's like a perfect plot. It's like you're not allowed to leave. You don't know when you'll be allowed to leave.
Right.
And you're just being haunted.
My brain then went to the comedic device of one of the ghosts being from the 1918 Spanish flu, and then people just like kind of comparing what's worse.
Yeah, like you think
Like,
this is bad.
well, when we had the pandemic, going back and forth. Like, yeah, well, we're not allowed to do this.
I mean, you think about like all the forms of entertainment we have. God, it's not that bad. Like, there's so many things to do. Yeah, it's
you connect with everyone on everything.
Oh yeah,
video and it's incredible.
It's been so you're so still connected that I have still turned down plans, like from the comfort of my bedroom. Like we had something the other day. There were like 20 people from my high school that started, and I love them. They're all awesome people that I love and miss, and all good things. But they were like, do you want to come to this like little high school reunion Zoom meeting? And I was like, fuck no, I don't. I'm not putting on makeup. Like, no, I'm not doing that. Text me if you want to know what I'm doing. Like, you're still able, or like all of the, I'm sure you're getting a bunch of these too, all the comics that are like, I'm going to be live at like Thursday at 6. And you're like, have fun. Like,
I feel like that had games. About 8 to 10 days at the end. Like, oh, that's awesome. To the point where all of a sudden I was just like, I'm not going to show up for your live show anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I know you feel bad, but you're like, I support you, but not this much. Like, you keep doing it, but yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. There's, and then obviously there's the people thinking it's fake and all
the fake thing.
Yeah, that's been a new thing, especially, or not a new thing really, but I've been seeing. I didn't watch the movie, but they had a thing called Plandemic. Did you see that?
Yeah, I just saw it. Plandemic.
Did you watch it?
I don't know if I watched. I watched a thing that was like 20 minutes thing called Plandemic. I don't know if that's the full thing, but it was very much that.
Yeah, it was what? It was eye opening.
No, it was very much that. It was like it's fake, and this is all part of a big conspiracy, and there's like profits to be made, and we're being told that face coverings do something, but they don't, and we're actually hurting our immune system. It was just one of those things where I think with conspiracies, I'm usually I've never like gone down that rabbit hole, but pretty much anytime I hear them, I'm like, oh wait, what? And then I usually have to step back and be like, Jesse,
okay, wait.
Don't just believe this 20-minute YouTube video you just saw after you've had 7 weeks of like experts talking on TV about what's happening.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to like undo all of that because the scoring and the lighting was really good.
It's true. There's a lot of like documentaries that I'll watch and I'll be like, maybe we didn't land on the moon. I don't know. I wasn't there. Like I'll watch, I don't know. It's easy to like get sucked into them, and then you start just being like, we probably went to the moon. Like, it's fine. It doesn't really affect my life that much.
Also, but I don't need to spend the next 4 months figuring it out, doing my research, and coming to the conclusion.
Yeah, posting things up on your wall and trying to connect them, and
like losing lifelong friendships because someone says that's not true, and you just have to be like, well, then we can't be friends.
I can't abide this. Yeah, there's, I was actually thinking when this whole lockdown first started, I used to always love to watch, I kind of do love watching conspiracy theory shows, but yeah, just like you, I try not to like dig too deep into it. I'm just like, okay, let's stay on solid ground, but just see what other people are saying. But I always loved to watch doomsday preppers because they always cracked me up. Like it was like, oh yeah, you guys are set. Like you got it all figured out. And then right when this lockdown happened, I was like, are they stoked? Like those people must be so happy that they're like, finally, there's a reason we've done this. We have this whole bunker. We have food to last us like a year. We know who we're gonna kill first. Like we've like figured it all out.
They're like, oh, you guys are worried about toilet paper?
Yeah, guess
you
what?
Are not ready.
God, insane. All right, well, thank you so much for being a part of the show and doing an episode with me. It was fun. It's a little different than, like, normally we would actually physically visit the place and kind of walk around and explore it, which, I, of course, miss that element. Usually the comedian is like, what the fuck? That happened here? And I'm like, yeah, isn't that great? It's midnight. They're like, oh my God. But, you know, you got to work with what you got.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Thank you.
I love
Thank
that.
you very much. I hope you had fun learning all about the Hinsdale house with us. Be sure to find Jessie on Instagram with the handle @It'sJessieGavin. That's @It'sJessieGavin. While you're at it, check us out on social media too. You can find us on Instagram with the handle Lit Dark Podcast. That's @LITDARK Podcast. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube. Make sure you drop us a comment, tell us hi. We love hearing from you. Special thanks for this episode goes to my producer, Randall Lawrence in Cranival Studios, my graphic designer, Jonathan Cooper in Heck Yeah Studios, Jessie Gavin for being such a terrific guest, and of course, all of you for listening. I'll see you next time right here on Laughing in the Dark in Lockdown.
Sources used for episode 6 of Laughing in the Dark include weekinweird.com, 2WGRZ, IMDb, astonishinglegends.com, danielkleiss.com, Haunted History, Trail of New York State, Google Reviews, and the Olean Times Herald.
Laughing in the Dark is brought to you in part by Heck Yeah Studio. Heck Yeah Studio is a creative effort working with people to create meaningful things. At Heck Yeah Studio, they work with clients to turn their ideas or existing brands into real or better versions. Heck Yeah Studio is the place to go for custom illustration for a full range of branding services, like killer logos, great colors and typography, and fun illustrations for pins, signs, prints, shirts, vehicles, posters, or anything you can imagine. At Heck Yeah Studio, they work with love. Their dream client is someone who is passionate about what they do. At Laughing in the Dark, Heck Yeah Studio has designed our logo, all of our merch, and any posters or stickers that we have. I am so proud and lucky to work with such an awesome company, and I could not recommend them higher.